Even though we're not introducing it, I will introduce briefly. We are really fortunate to have Eric Schaffer with us today. It was just a happenstance that it was January, and as you know, my name is Ilona Posner, and I am the chair of this organization's programming, which means it is my job to fill the slot every month, month in, month out. And as many of you know, as I make eye contact, I have probably had most of you recruited, and it takes a long time to fill each one of those slots, and I'm running out of friends. So please, if you haven't had a chance to talk here yet, please come and see me. We'll be better friends. So it was a real treat because it just happened that Eric was passing through town, and as you got the notice in less than a week ago, this is when I found out that he was actually going to be here and willing to present. So this is why we're here. It's a real treat. Eric is one of the forefathers of our industry. Can I say that? Is that okay?
It's not correct.
Okay. All right.
No, it's important.
He's second generation. He's
Yeah,
second
that's right.
generation.
So who knows when the industry started? Right. How many people here are UX people? Okay, so like we're in the family, right? So when did we start? What? I don't even know. When did we start? No, that was like when I was born. No, no. So the field dates back to World War II, and they had this little problem that they had aircraft cockpits, and the engineers would make the aircraft cockpits, kind of like today. And they had brilliant ideas like reuse. So they would just take stuff, and whatever was easy, and whatever, they just stuck everything in. And they'd deliver it, and the pilots would come in, and like, it wasn't laid out the way they'd seen any other aircraft. And they'd have things happen like an airfield would be being bombed in straits, and the pilot would run out, jump into the aircraft, and they couldn't take off because everything's laid out differently. And they would taxi around, and the planes would be shooting into the... And so they brought in a group of psychologists, and they said, well, how are we supposed to lay this out? And they used the same kind of techniques we now use on websites and stuff like doing medical devices, visual link analysis and all that. And they created something called the Sacred Six, which we still use to stay upright in aircraft. It's a visually very efficient way to get around. So we started in World War II, and there was a whole generation of folks that are retired and dead that came before me. So I'm second generation. My kids are in the field, third generation. So we date back that far. And that's kind of important because actually we know what we're doing by now. No, I mean, and I've had debates on this, like in front of CHI, the annual conference. I've had debates where we get like, Spool gets up and we don't know what we're doing. It's like, we do. I can prove it. I know what I'm doing, right, don't you? And so the problem is shifted. We know how to make stuff usable. We even know how to make it persuasive and compelling. We know how to do that. What we don't know how to do, I think, is do it on a large scale. That's, we haven't quite got our act together. So when you tell me, hey, I got a project, I want to make this website usable, you know how to do that. It's almost a boring question. It's fun, you can be creative, but we know how to do that. But now tell me you have an organization and you need 20 websites developed every month and you need tens of thousands of people involved. Yeah, okay, that's more difficult, and that's kind of what I do. So I'm the global CEO of a company called Human Factors International, and I've been doing UX work I started working in the field in 1977, second generation. Japan, all those guys, Sid Sumit. So I'm just standing on shoulders. But I've been running HFI since 1981. So I've been around for a while. And we've slowly grown up to be the biggest company that does just UX work. And we have offices all around the world. And so I get to fly all around the world. So when a company has aspirations for global domination, the CEO never sleeps. Don't do it. right? But we get to gather best practices from around the world. And we focus just on the issue of how to do human-centered design. We don't do anything else. Don't code anything, no operation stuff, no business analysis. We just do, how do I optimize human performance? And how do I deal with the motivational aspects that drive that? That's all we do. It's fun stuff. We're known as being scientific and systematic. So we're scientists, psychologists, research-based, but we're very much pragmatic. So the things we're going to talk about today, the things that we talk about day in, day out, all around the year, are not things that are theory. They're things that you can use now, that matter, that we can make money off of. Because as much as I sometimes sound like a preacher, UX is not a religion. It's a business tool. And so we need to look at it that way. We stopped being able to make the thing where you have like, here are the logos of our clients. We can't do that anymore. But we get to work in all kinds of verticals. So we work in finance, and we work in telephony, and medical, and all kinds of places. Again, you can pull out what are the best practices from all around different domains. And for over 15 years, I've been looking at and working on this issue of how do I do industrial strength, large scale UX. My publisher, my editor, Peter Gordon, retired last week. He sent me a sweet letter. And Peter Gordon, how many people have read the book, The Mythical Man Month? Okay, good. So The Mythical Man Month, you got to read it. It's a classic about project management. But in The Mythical Man Month, it talks about a story where NASA builds a building to hold their space shuttle. And when you build a building, there's a bunch of issues about building a building, but suddenly you find if you make the building big enough, you have new issues. So it rains inside the building. It has weather systems inside the building if you make it big enough. And so it turns out when you do UX on an industrial scale, there's a whole set of new issues. And so that's really what I focused on personally for the last 15 years. The new book, so I wrote Institutionalization of Usability about 10 years ago. This one's coming out. You can get it on Kindle right now, and it's coming out of the publisher in the next week or so, being printed. We still have printed books. And this is the model, so now you don't have to buy the book. And the idea of it is that when we talk about institutionalization usability, you got to think of a whole bunch of different stuff. It's not like, okay, I'm doing a new project. You're building a practice. And organizations today screw it up all the time, really regularly. We're going to do UX, right? How many people have executives in their organization that are saying, we want to do UX now? Okay? Yeah, starting to be a pretty good number. It's growing, which is cool. But the executive goes, we're going to do UX. We want things customer-centric. And then they start approaching it in some interesting ways. And it's, by the way, reliable. So the executive will start by getting up and giving a speech. It reminds me when I grew up in New York City, and the first joke I remember was there's a bus broken down at the bottom of the hill. Bus driver jumps out, grabs this woman's chihuahua, ties it to the front of the bus. Woman said, what are you doing with my chihuahua? He says, I have to get the bus up the hill. She says, a chihuahua, a little dog, can't pull a bus. And the driver says, no problem, I have a whip. It's New York. So the thing is that it's kind of like that. There's actually nobody in the bank trying to make banking hard. Right? So giving a speech actually doesn't help. So then they start doing other things like they'll bring in training. So we do like hundreds and hundreds of classes every year, all around the world. So we like it when they do that. But The reality is, so I bring people and I give them some training and I put them out and there's no standards and no methods and nobody knows what they're supposed to do. And you think it's going to help that much? It's not exactly the full solution. It's part of the solution. If you just do training, it's actually pathetic. A whole bunch of stuff has to come together to make it work. Makes sense? Right. Let me ask us to, let's just go around the room. We started to do that. And what I'd like to do is ask you to say your name and the area that you're working in. Yes, we'll pass this around. Say your name. The area that you're working in, like what company and what organization, what your role is. And then I'd like you to tell us something special about yourself, so we kind of know who you are. So hobby, something nobody else knows about you. Sometimes we get some interesting things. And then what I'd like to do is have you ask your most important question about institutionalization of usability or the usability field. Anything you want.
Hi.
Hi.
First off, thanks
Yeah.
for the question. That's great. Hi, everybody.
You were asking for it.
I'm Drew Ellis. I'm a friend of Lona's going back quite a ways. And,
so I have to be nice to you. Okay?
Well, yeah, if you need to. I work at Brookfield Global Relocation Services right now, and that's an enterprise that moves people from point A to point B when their company needs them to. And so we do software that manages that. And I'm a user experience architect there. I've been there for 2 years and primarily oversee what seems to be a burgeoning product design group. So hopefully that's something that goes forward, and the institutionalization of that is certainly something that I think could be useful as a framework to help guide that. So that's why I'm here.
And something special about yourself?
I've played in a bagpipe band for 25 years, and I play the bass drum.
Oh, I love bagpipes. Whenever I hear bagpipes, I want to like walk 5 miles and kill somebody with a sword.
Yeah, that's part of it.
So good. Okay, so question about UX or institutionalization? We're not quite done.
The question that I have is, while the framework is great, I think I would want to understand how the ecosystem around the framework works to make it so that you can get the buy-in from people to get this put into place. Because I think while the framework is great and things can be in place, there's a conversion of minds around that and a value prop that you have to communicate. And so I'd want to know more about how to kind of drive that.
Sure, let's talk about that for a minute. Just put the mic down. This will take a minute. This is a good question. So that's a problem. So when you look at a process where I'm going, this is how you institutionalize usability, an obvious question is like, where does it screw up? Right? And it used to screw up reliably with executive championship. You couldn't get an executive champion, you're going nowhere. And today that's not true. Today more and more the executives are going, this is important, I get it. I read it in the magazine. I don't quite know what it is, but I've learned to say UX is important. Right? So where does it screw up? It screws up in governance. All of the infrastructure stuff, we kind of have it out of the box now. You don't have to reinvent it. We have baseline stuff, at least when we do it, like, okay, here's your methods, here's your standards, customize them, you got that done. Here's the tools. So that's more out of the box, and it's just a matter of having a commitment to do it and get it right. And you don't want to hang up there, but everything's there. You don't have to redo that. But governance, that's dangerous. What does governance really mean? Governance means that I may have the practice in place, but is it getting utilized? Do people call you in? Or are they resistant to you? Do they do projects off in the side in the corner? Right? The biggest problem with that, sorry, we're just going to bounce around. Nothing bad will happen. We have 184 slides.
Can we have some of those slides for later,
No.
for our video?
I charge extra for the slides. Yeah, there it is. So the thing is that when you think about it, it's kind of like the executives are going to say, go ahead and do it, but is it really going to happen? And there's a whole set of evil forces in your organization that you have to deal with. There are beliefs that will hold you back. right? So people will think, it's just common sense. Anyone can do it. Right. UX just common sense, right? Not so much, right? But we have to battle that. Or designed by the CEO. Right? Everybody thinks they're a UX expert. It's like branding. Everybody's a branding expert. Everyone's a screen designer, right? I'm sitting in India with the CEO in charge of a photogrammetry mapping software company. And he's this classic Indian CEO, has a diamond ring like that big and a really bad toupee. You should have spent more on the toupee last time. But, so I'm sitting in with him, and he says, listen, you are the expert, Dr. Schaffer, and you've done this design, and he looks at, oh, this is so wonderful, and he gets up and like, there should be some red here. And I'm like thinking chromatic aberration, chromostereopsis, oh my God. And he's like, no, red would be good. So, right, so these are things we battle, okay? So, and sometimes there are a lot of them, sometimes there are few. Do you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect? How many people know Dunning-Kruger? Just a handful. I have to cover it briefly. So Dunning-Kruger effect is a set of studies that show basically that people that don't know crap thinks they know a lot. Right? So, and as you learn more, your idea that you know a lot drops. Then when you know a lot, you get more humble, etc. So, what we have to do, one of the tricks to governance, one of them, is education. So we have training courses specifically built to educate those folks. And the purpose of the course, really, is so that they move them up to the point where they know they can't do it.
So overwhelm them with evidence.
The course is built quietly to do that. And we do them again and again and again, and they come out going, wow, there's more to it than I thought. As well as convince them that it's important. There's a lot of stuff to be done. So battling the Dunning-Kruger effect is important. Also, having and so this is one of the courses we do for that. Right? That course is specifically engineered to shake that out. We also do certification of organizations. Now, you probably may have heard that HFI does, and we actually certify about 10% of the world's population of UX people, which is really bizarre. It's like, how did that happen? It's kind of like Microsoft certification, and there's a long history. If you ask me, I'll tell you stories about it. But we've also started certifying organizations. So if your management is going, I need you to be certified, and you start having too few people or not doing the things you're supposed to do, that'll flag it. So you want to educate people, but you want also to have the threat. And so we want feedback so you can tell if they're doing it. You want to have systems. Let me show you something. I'll show you what like this is a mature UX operation. What does it look like in terms of the tool sets and all? So here's an organization where I can look at it. We're going to talk about object-oriented stuff a little later. And they get 834 objects, 186 people working in it. You go and say, what user profiles do you have? It's like, right? And you can see right away. I can show you another client. April's going, this person works for, the folks that are doing this work for April, and she's going to fix it. But so how can I as an executive know that I've got bad work going on? Big client, lots of stuff going on, 28 objects, users registered, user profiles. Oh. So I can see. Right? So when we talk about governance, which is like one of the main things we have to worry about, what we find is that you need to educate people, bring them on board, a constant process. You also have to have a way the executives can tell if they're screwing up. And then they can do something about it. So that's governance. Okay? So thank you. We've done one introduction. That's good. Now it's you.
Hi, my name is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
I'm working at CIBC in the digital channel,
Okay.
managing the editorial team.
Great.
But I'm switching over to the UX team next month.
All right.
Yay! I'm very interested in content strategy, which has been a driver in broadening my skill set. So, again, same with the previous question, the problems that we have come down to governance, working with our stakeholders and getting buy-in from them. Making change in a big enterprise is very difficult. And I had tequila shots with Bruce Springsteen.
All right. The boss. So, hang on a second. So we talked a little bit about governance, and I think part of the view needs to be that it takes time. Right? So it's not like the days when, okay, we're doing a project, it's $50K, no problem, do it. These are big things. You're setting up a practice. So if it takes 6 years to build it and get it in the organization, that's okay. It takes that long. So we shouldn't have the idea that we're going to get up, give a speech, and suddenly it's going to be there. There's a lot of pieces to put into place. There's a big investment to make. That's part of why we've gotten... How many people have questions that people ask you about the ROI of usability? Only 2? Oh, okay, cool. Wow, because in the States we're getting a lot of questions on it, but it's not asked here this time. But they're asking in the States anyway because they're going, okay, we're going to be spending $3 million, $10 million, whatever it is, and now I need numbers. It's not a little garden project. It's not an experiment anymore. So we have to just be patient. Okay? Cool. Hi.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Chadwick. I work for CIBC as well. I've been a creative designer and developer for about 6 years, but doing UX for the last 3, and now certified to delve right into research and work on that full time. So we actually have a really strong UX culture at CIBC, which I'm thankful. I'm in a really good place to really begin working on this stuff. But my question really was about ROI. I've never really been in touch with anyone who holds the purse strings, though our lines of business obviously are paying for good quality design. So I want to be able to present or at least prepare the
What do
ROI.
you tell them?
Yeah, what do you say?
So,
that kind of thing.
So it's interesting. ROI of usability is something we have a ton of data on now. And I personally get shoved in front of those people like twice a week, whether I need it or not. But what's the value of usability? And so the answer is that we know that crap already. So when you start out looking at it, what you find is that there's a correlation, this is from Forrester, there's a correlation between stock price and customer experience. You can't get any bigger than that, right? So companies that are good at customer experience, their stock price does better, even in bad times, than ones that do that. So you gotta love that. And because of that, we start seeing stuff like this. 2012, Forrester comes out, their study shows that 93% of companies have UX as a strategic imperative. Right? And 75% see it as a differentiator, right? A way of battling the competition. Right? So what's happened actually in our field is our turn. We've gone through waves of the information age. There was a time that I remember, and you don't, where the main differentiator was whether you get the hardware to work. Right? And you had laptops that were like, okay, I've got pluggable computers, and 64K of RAM. And so there was a time when that was a differentiator, but today it's a commodity, you just buy it. Software then became the differentiator, right? So IBM ruled, and then IBM suddenly, where are we going? And then Microsoft came up, and it didn't matter if you could use it. If it ran, you were lucky. People literally told me, you know what? This was hard to build. It should be hard to use. I'm not making it up. And so then the software has become a commodity, right? We send it to Estonia, we send it to India, and they code it. It's not a big deal anymore. We know how to do it. Companies are CMM level 26. It's fine. And now what's the differentiator? No one wins in the market because they have hotter laptops. No one wins in the market because they can code. They win in the market because they have great user experience. So it's our turn. Now we have lots of data on the value of UX. So this is the fourth set of studies from Nielsen Norman Group, and they're showing sales going up 87%, visitor count 91%, performance and productivity double, right? So we see lots of numbers like that. We see this all the time in our practice. This is a little continuous improvement thing for Staples. We just went from this screen to this screen, because this was distracting people. $6 million per month increased sales. This is Syncrude. They had an intranet that had no standards. We put standards in place, put a central portal in place. Training goes from 8 hours to 15 minutes. This is ConocoPhillips, their intranet. So they had a real navigational structure problem. We put standards in place. Call center, calls go from 300 a day to 0. Right? Disney, cruise line, checking in, cut by half. Right? Now this is, I don't have time for that. I'll show you one other example. But what I'm showing you is that different things, right? Sometimes training, okay, it's important. This is a recent one. It's a life insurance and mutual fund company. And we did evaluations. We did a UX strategy for them. We did redesign of their digital channels. We put standards in place. And, well, their net promoter score kind of stuff gets better. We don't really care. Everyone's like, net promoter score. Okay, fine. People say they like it. But that's not the main thing. So we can see behavioral stuff, which I'm more excited about. So they spend more time on the site. They're more engaged. We at least think they're more engaged. They could be more frustrated, so we're a little careful of that metric. So spending more time on the site if you're struggling and swearing isn't a good thing. But, and they went from the worst in the industry to the best, even better than things like newspapers. And leads go up, well, 179% increase in leads. Okay, that I can take to the bank. Right? So this is the kind of stuff you see. Now, the important thing for each of you is you work in an organization which cares about UX for a reason different from the way you think. Because UX is kind of like dental surgery. Right? Nobody likes dental surgery. No one wants UX. It's painful. We're annoying. Right? So the thing is, though, people want dental surgery for very specific reasons. And it's different for different people. Some people get dental surgery because they want to get girls. Or guys. Or because they want the pain to stop. But different organizations have different reasons why they do UX, and you need to suss out for your organization why it matters. So I did a institutionalization program at the World Bank Group. And the World Bank Group is least interested in making money. And they're not even interested in saving money, to tell you the truth. Their meme for UX is, we can't eradicate poverty with awkward apps. That they're excited about. Right? So you have to know what resonates for your organization. Does that make sense? Okay. We're down to 3. It's going well.
Hi, my name is Diana.
Hi, Diana.
I'm a UX UI designer at Ontario Telemedicine Network.
Oh, I love that.
Healthcare, that was what attracted me to
Because there you get things like, why do you do UX? Let's argue about it. We save lives.
Exactly. That was the exact reason why I decided to take that as opportunity.
Yeah.
And you know, it reminds me of the day when I realized that I have a really good argument. You know, the engineers would say, "Well, who cares? Let them just log into that other system. We'll not create a unified login, right? Just we'll have 2 parallel systems. Who cares?" And then the UX comes up with every minute costs 9,000 billion brain cells. So,
Right.
how would you like it if it was you, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I have really good arguments about
That's right.
things there. But there are, of course, challenges as well. This is my second job where I'm the one-man show. And as probably many of you know, it's very challenging. I've been there, done that. And my question really to you would be, you just mentioned earlier we need to be patient. That was my previous job. You know, I educated, I taught, I didn't manage to raise the level of UX. You know, I was waving this book a lot around the office, and I didn't manage to get more staff. Now I'm at 0 again. You are right, there is much more leadership acceptance than it used to be. So yes, they do like speeches. But as we know, there is a lot of steps. So the question to you is there any trick that we can apply to speed it up?
What part do you want to speed up?
Usability in particular.
No, I get that.
I
But
mean,
so the thing is,
the UX versus.
so they're different parts, and so you got to answer the question: where is it hanging up? And so, if you've got a problem getting your executive champions behind you, there's a set of ways we can speed that up, right? If I'm getting problems getting infrastructure or staffing, which sounds like you've got an issue.
It's probably the biggest issue, I would say, is the culture and acceptance, and in particular, contact with customers, direct contact. That is one of the biggest obstacles that I run into.
Okay, so you're in one of those shops that go, oh, we have to do customer experience, but you can't talk to the end customers. But we have some people who used to like have diabetes, but now it's like.
And we know everything
Like
internally, right?
their cousin has diabetes, so you can ask them what it's like, right?
This company is very acceptable of the proposals and to do it, but it takes time to set it up. I'm a proud owner of usability lab, so I actually did quite a lot of usability research, but I wish there was more, much more.
Well, you're greedy. No, so the thing is that you need to drive ahead. My concern is you're one. Who knows what percentage of a company should be made up of UX people? So if you have a development shop, how many UX people do you need? What percentage? Come on. 20%. Okay. So pretty much there's an industry standard on that, guys. So write this down. 10% of the development group. 10% of the development group.
Can you put another 10 to 20?
He's saying 8 to 12. Overall company, you can't tell. So if I have a company, so for example, we met a company that does package delivery this week. And I did this with them, right? And they're going, they've got a huge number of people that drive trucks. I don't care. They're customers, kind of. But they have 3,000 people doing system development. How's your math? Right? They need 300 UX people. Currently, they have maybe 2. A few weeks ago, I'm talking to a company that's one of the big system development folks. And they have 300,000 people involved in system development. It's in India, it's 3 lakh. 100,000 is a lakh. So 300,000, they need 30,000 UX people. They have 64. So, and do people know about homeopathy? Right? So homeopathic medicine says, I'm going to treat you with arsenic, but I'm not going to give you any. Right? So you take a big thing of sugar and you take like 1 molecule of arsenic and you drop it in and you mix it up completely and then you take 1 drop of the sugar and you put it into more sugar and you... So it's kind of done like that. So there's none left. So that's homeopathic UX. It's like flavored with UX. It's like, so when you buy the stew and it says flavored with meat, because there isn't enough meat to say that it's really got beef, right? So they kind of held the beef over it, maybe something dropped. It's like that. And people do that all the time. If you're in that position, I have advice for you. Whatever you do, do it right. So you're going, I'm not going to run around frantically from doing half-assed work, because you'll be gone if you do that. You go, I can only do one system at a time. So you need to have enough staff in order to do it. And part of the communication to the executives is if you want to do fanciful UX, then yeah, you can go ahead. You've got 2 people, you need 300. We have UX. It's fanciful. Okay. All right.
Hi, my name is Octavio Escalante.
What was it? I'm sorry.
Octavio Escalante.
Octavio, okay.
I'm from Mexico, which could be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not currently working, but I have worked before as a technology consultant for a big consulting firm, and I will be working for them again here in Toronto.
Okay.
And well, I played guitar, and
What kind of guitar? Like blues or
rock, and also trova, which is
that like the flamenco kind of stuff?
flamenco with yeah.
That's what my parents did to me. When I was like, I want to play like the Beatles, and they got me a classical guitar, and teachers like, here, sit like this.
And I'm studying here at the Faculty of Information, where we're sitting at the high school. And we had a talk here from Steve Krug, another old guy in the UX field.
Thanks for that.
It was a great talk. And now looking back at my work as a technology consultant, was I designed a report for in the context of an implementation of a big ERP for a telecommunications company, and I think that it was ugly because we didn't have any standards, we didn't have any usability experience or anyone doing anything about that. And I think that now I understand the importance, and
so the thing is that it's good that you understand the importance, but it's even more important that you understand if you want to do this stuff, you need the skill set. That it's not something that good intentions actually don't count, sorry. And the fact that you can look at it and go, that looks ugly, doesn't mean much. You need to be able to look at it and go, I'm looking at it in terms of visual link analysis. I'm looking at it in terms of signal detection theory. I'm looking at it in terms of my understanding of how human visual, intellectual, memory, and motor activity work. And so the more you can get depth into that, so people go to our training and they get very practical skills in that, and that's really useful. Even more, if you can go and get a master's degree, if you can get deeper education, so you understand, the more you understand about how humans work, the better. And it is a lifetime thing. So I learn new things about our field all the time.
So I think I will be in the curve, in the phase, in the part where I think we need help from an expert.
And that's fine. So we'll send you experts. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I need to thank our hosts who have provided this facility on such short notice. It's the Faculty of Information, the Students Group. Yes? Thank you.
I literally was in class, and we got into a cab, and I was on the phone, and I got off the phone, and I was in this room. So, what are we here for? No, I'm just joking. My name is Brandon. I'm a Master of Design student at OCAD in Inclusive Design, which is about designing for people, using user experience.
Is it inclusive design meaning design for people or design for poor people?
No, design systems for people.
Okay.
So, yeah,
sometimes people talk about inclusive design as design for the bottom of the group.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Which
A lot of people from
difficult.
a lot of people from banks and actually our profs. I think a grad from this high school as well, Peter. Some student.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I'm doing what you just said to do. Get some more experience.
That's good.
Hi, my name is Carmen Chen, and I'm a student too at OCAD for the design program. But before I got into the master program, I am a user interface designer, and I'm interested in this because the company that I used to work at, they have an agile workshop, and it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult.
Agile, fragile, rhyme.
Yeah.
Is it a no.
So we're kind of stuck at like number 3 and 4.
So,
Back and forth.
when you look at doing UX work, these are all the kinds. So if you go to do UX work, this is what's involved. Right? These are all the things we do. And we do these projects all the time. This is building the practice. Forget about that for a second. These are all the things we do. Agile is okay if you're going to do detailed design. Assuming that somebody already has a strategy, has completed the innovation, has done the structural design, has all the foundational stuff in place, you can do the detailed design with Agile, it'll be okay. But if you try to do anything big with Agile, without the structural design, you'll end up with a mess. Because it doesn't give you the opportunity to look at the big picture. Okay. In reality today, one of the biggest issues we have in the field as we expand in what we do is we have to think about UX strategy. So we have to know what we're building. What is the customer experience that we're building for the user? Cross-channel. What is it like to do life insurance, stuff like that? How do I interact with my life insurance company? Then if you build part of it, that's okay. That's a good thing. You can build, I have the castle, I can build the kitchen, it fits in, I can build the next piece. If I have no vision, I keep building stuff and throwing it away. It's crap. Most of the time today, success involves an ecosystem solution. Right? So people ask me all the time, why is Apple so successful? It's because they're white. So why is Apple successful? It's not because it's such a wonderful interface design, actually. It's because the pieces fit together, right? So I get an iPod, and that fits with iTunes, and it fits with the Genius Bar, and everything works together to make a solution for me. The Fire is a crappy tablet, but it's a portal to Amazon. You gotta love it, right? So whatever you're doing, medical systems, insurance, banking, it's about an ecosystem solution today. You don't win because you make a usable thing. And we lose when we make usable wrong things. Right? So we have to understand how everything fits together. And that requires bigger things than just like, hey, I'll show you what happens. This is real. I'm not making this up. Shut up. This is from a bank. I didn't make this up. You have internet banking, okay, and cell phone banking. You can do that. Or you can do telephone banking, which is different than cell phone banking. And you have speech banking that's not cell phone or telephone. It's like, what the hell? How did that happen? It happened because people were in silos building their little applications without seeing the big picture. So as a UX team, we need to not just go, okay, I'm building this thing, I'm going to make it usable, but are we building the right things, and how do they all fit together? I don't know how we got there. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Sarah Krosky. I'm also a master's student in the Inclusive Design program at OCAD University. I did a little bit of UX work over the summer with a MyTax grant with Bridgepoint Health, and looking at their online resource that linked seniors with complex chronic disease to reputable resources. And so I got a little taste of UX, and I loved it.
Cool.
So I'm looking at
field. It's a great field. We need tons. So the field is interesting. There are about 50,000 people in the field, and that's been growing. I remember when there were like, we knew everybody. It was like hundreds, a few hundred people in the field when I started. Now there's about 50,000 people in the field. There are about 300,000, GE came out with this, there are about 300,000 people that put customer or user experience on their resume, but actually don't know anything about it. So being good in this field is tremendous. So get in, but you gotta not just put it on the resume. You gotta really know the stuff.
Definitely.
Thank you. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's all.
Cool.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jen Betterly. I'm a UX strategist at RBC, one of the companies on your very
Oh,
long
I
list
used
of
to like live at RBC
clients
practically, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, that would have been before my time
Yes,
there.
probably when you were in short pants.
Yeah, I actually made the switch. I used to work in an agency environment, so I have several years experience agency side and just switched to client side a few months ago. So what I'm still wrapping my head around is how UX gets done in a large institutional environment.
And so that's this problem. And so there's a whole set of things, and it has to be done in a mature way because that's easier. Right? It's not because it's right, it's easier, it's more effective. So think about something for a minute. So we do UX today. How many people here have programming skill? Okay. Who can tell me what flat file programming is?
Text files.
Yeah, it's the old one. So, right? So there was a time when when we programmed, so when I started programming, I programmed in machine language and lap-6 dial on a machine with 2K of memory and a paper tape. And when we made the program, it interspersed all the, so you'd have instruction and data, everything's in one paper tape. And then we got sophisticated, it became a stack of cards, no problem. Right? And today, most people don't even know what that is. Because you do object-oriented programming. Right? Object-oriented programming says, well, I have this thing that I care about, I build that thing, and then I call it when I need it. And you wouldn't think about doing a flat file. In the UX field today, pretty much everybody does flat files. And it's pathetic. And it's okay if you have one person with this. That's okay, but that's not a sustainable operation. Right? So what happens when we do flat files, right? So PowerPoint, Word docs, I do a project, I do a task, whatever it is, right? And I turn out a PowerPoint, I show it, everyone applauds, I take it, I put it in SharePoint. Okay, that's all okay. Until I have 300 people doing one a month for 3 years, or 30,000 people doing one a month for a year, and you have a room full of PowerPoints. And everything that you know is gone. And you do everything from scratch. Oh, good. So what should it look like to do object-oriented UX? So I should be able to go in, not these guys yet. April's going to fix that, right?
You got it.
Thank you. So at Standard Bank, if they're going to do a project, they go in and they say, well, what project are we doing? Here are our methods. Right? And if I'm doing high-level design, before I do Agile, then I can go in and I understand why I'm doing it and when it's required. And I can go to any activity and I can go, you know, what are the objectives of the activity and what do we do and what are the tasks and how long does it take, and everything's defined. Okay, that sounds bad. But the fact that I have that means I don't forget things. And I can go in, I can just download a data gathering protocol. I don't have to start from scratch. And then when I start thinking about users, I can go in and say, well, what users have we got? And whatever user we've got, everything I know about that user is in this one object. So I can go in, I can read about their skills and knowledge. What languages do they speak? I can ask what motivates them. Maslow's hierarchy, we're happy. And more sophisticated stuff. So I can look at things like how they feel about different kinds of banking. I can look at cultural issues, right? So the cross-cultural stuff. And then I can see what projects we've done on that kind of user. Now think for a minute, look at the list of projects. Every project has a bunch of documents. So look at the documents. So we have, I have to read all these documents for every project to sort out what I know about that user. Like I'm going to do that. Right? So we start being able to pull together the stuff that we need to know based on pulling out the objects I care about. So I can go, here's this user, what environments does the user show up in? ATM. Okay, so what do we know about this middle market user in ATM? There's an ecosystem, and I can pull that all out, and everything that I know about that ATM, middle market user in the ATM is right there, and I can work off of it. I don't have to re-research it. I can add to it instead. Do you see the difference? Anyway, just a thought. So we're getting short of our time. Are we going to go a little longer? Or
We can go longer.
are people tired of this? Go ahead. Should we take some just free questions? Sounds like, look, I'm seeing people like, hey. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Turing. I've been in the Inclusive Design Program. I've been doing UX design for over 12 years, and I also have just moved back.
So new to the field, good.
No, yeah. So, but I am new to a bank, a big institution.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the things that have been going on right now, and I've come in as a strategist, which is a new layer on top of...
the higher level stuff, right?
Yeah,
Don't
which
do
is
that, you
brilliant.
build a usable wrong thing.
And we're now turning it into customer experience is now being integrated into the planning, everything. So I have two problems. One, now everyone thinks that they're a customer experience designer, and everyone's doing it because they've all bought into it. So there's a lot of cooks in the just going through roles and responsibilities on one side. But I am very interested in what you're talking about here. So I don't think we're fully mature. We're young in the bank at 3 years. We've made great strides, but I think we still need to do this to manage our own internal work. And can you see that applying, I think, to the strategy documents? Because again, that's another layer where you create the strategy and those who are on that project team know the strategy, but it has touch points to other pieces of business.
Yeah. So that's the UX strategy issue. So where does all this stuff go? It goes to the point where I can go, hey, I have all these channels. And I need to, and every channel is good for certain kinds of things. How do they interact together?
Yes.
Right? And so that's what we need. The foundation of that is, first of all, and this is going to sound kind of weird. So you're at a bank, and you're thinking about the UX strategy for the whole bank. The first thing you have to worry about is emotions. Why are people going to interact with you? So that's the first solution. And so what we do is we do a pet architecture where we say, okay, I understand what's going on for the users, and I understand what will drive them. It underlies everything. So for example, here, this is a bank that does high net worth clients. For high net worth clients, there's a lot of fear. We're happy about that. So fear, food, sex, and survival of progeny are fundamental drives. So we're all happy. And they are afraid they're going to lose their money, and they have a drive for individuation. They feel like if they have a customized program that meets their needs, they're safer. This is not true. but it doesn't matter. It makes them feel safer. So we then have the frame of the overall cross-channel experience. Investment solutions must be based on your needs, both explained and unexplained. We have a mean, we understand what drives you. That drives through all of the website design. It drives through, even TV ads were done around it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, how do the channels interact together? And banks do terribly at this, right? That example I gave is funny, but it's not. And how does that happen, right? You have all these channels. How does it happen? You may think, and one of the reasons why in this field you will tend to get old, gray, and bitter is you'll think that people are evil, that they're trying to torture your customers. But what's really happening is people are working independently in very specific silos. And so they create this fragmented mess. When in fact what we need is one experience that pulls all that together. And it's more complicated than that because you have different kinds of users, each one needing a coherent experience. And that design is what you need in your UX strategy.
So the challenge is now everyone's seeing that gap and they're all racing in there to look at one TD from their perspective.
Right.
So the strategy team is working on research to get the, because what happens is that approach of the siloed also silos the customer. And it's actually one customer who goes across different banking needs.
Right. So you need ecosystem research,
right,
which looks at almost ethnographically, right? So you need that, but you need to step up, and there's a scrum that goes on, right? A big pile of people, everybody's fighting for, customer experience is important. You know what? It's a profession.
yeah.
And you need to, and one of the things external consultants are very good at is coming and doing that. Because you can stand up and go, this is a profession. They're like, you're trying to build an empire, right? When I come in and do it, it's like, oh yeah, he's talking about the global best practice, and they listen. We're saying the same exact words, right?
Right.
But that's what we need, is to make it clear. This is a profession, and I can prove that. So one of the things I do, and everybody should have their list of these things. You need a whole bunch of things like this. Hey, executive, okay, you're a customer experience expert. You can use your intuition. That's great. I got a question. We're making our web pages. They're going to describe the banking offers. And I have columns of text. How wide should the column be? Should it be 55 characters wide or 100 characters wide? Which is better? Anyone know? You should know. 55. No. Anyone else guess?
Depends on the font size.
No. 55 characters.
Okay.
For readability, you want 55 because people don't like to read all the way across the line.
Actually, you're even wrong with that. Or like is correct. So the trick is that people prefer 55, and they read faster at 100. Because there's less going back to start finding another place to start foveating. So a lot of the time of reading is moving your eyes. You know about RSVP? RSVP, Rapid Serial Visual Presentation. You show the text one word at a time and it flashes at you, and you can read like 700 words a minute doing that, but it feels like you're being dragged down a coal chute, so no one ever does it. But the point is to have data like this and the research to show it, so you can have these conversations and, okay, it's common sense, right? So we're going to have a menu like Yahoo has, right? Or we're going to have a menu at the top or a menu at the side. Which is best? How many think the index menu like Yahoo has? How many think the top menu like Microsoft does, the drop-downs? The left nav? And so a bunch of people aren't voting now. I feel alone. It turns out the index menu is best in terms of performance and preference. Right? So you need to have a set of these kinds of things so you can hammer the hell out of it. So that's the first thing, right? It's a profession. You don't do brain surgery self-taught. You don't do UX self-taught. Was there a second question?
No, I think someone else.
Okay.
Speaking of Agile, I'm just going to have a little interruption. We're going to have on March 28th that workshop in Agile UX. The promo is on our website.
Is it going to be like Lean UX?
No, Agile.
Oh, okay.
We
Because
have-
they have agile UX, they have lean UX, they have starving UX, they have completely fanciful, no UX. And they're all pretty close.
So March 28th, go to our website if you're interested. There's early registration discount, and there are 2 experts from Autodesk who will be doing this workshop. So I'd like to continue. You have a question, Maura? All right.
Hi, I'm Maura Johnston, Director of User Experience Design with Rogers Communications.
Oh, cool.
So telecom, large team,
Yeah.
actually multiple
We worked
teams.
with
Yeah. So multiple teams
Yeah.
inside the organization. Yeah. So, and I know we all come from, or a lot of us come from organizations where there's multiple teams. What have you found works best in terms of organizing things?
Org
Is
structure.
it by, yeah,
I got it.
org structure.
So I thought at one time I would make a living off this, but it turns out that there's only one that works, which makes it a really short consulting assignment. So basically, there's only one thing you'll do. If you're a biggish company, right? So if you're a little tiny company, you have a UX group. If you're a biggish company, you have a central UX team that's responsible for a bunch of stuff like standards and methods and recruiting and vendor relationships and stuff like that, mentoring. And then you have project UX groups assigned out into specific areas. And it's either dotted line or solid line, and that's the only decision to make. There is no other structure that works.
So the UX project groups are, do they vary by project to project, or are they like a consistent business assigned?
You try to keep them consistent, and then you move them when you move people as you need them. Part of the job of the central group is queuing people.
So, a lot of new recent literature on matrix management sort of falling on its face a bit. What you're showing is signs of matrix management.
So this is the question of dotted line, solid line. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. So the central group, this is a huge one for a really big organization, but basically this shows you the functions. Right? And if you look at this, this is like the kinds of things you do. You interact with professionals, and you get new staff, and you project plan and all that. Then you have that central team with the teams out doing work, and sometimes you have to move people, but you want somebody who knows a whole lot about peritoneal dialysis, and so they become experts in that, and you don't want to shift them too much. So this is the structure that works. Matrix is dangerous. Only very mature organizations handle that in any kind of way, because the problem is that person over in the corner will end up doing like regression testing. So what we want to do is have a solid line to the central group, at least initially, until it's really built into the culture. So that's it. There is no other solution. There's a big question about where it sits in the organization, but that's...
I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, is it where you've got strongest representation?
Where they love you most is best,
Where
yeah.
they love us most,
Yeah. See? Wasn't that easy?
Yeah, that saves me days of workshops.
That's all there is to it. Sorry, it's not more complicated than that.
Another question?
Hi, my name is David Giorgiani. I am a software engineer by trade and kind of worked at UX as well. I currently work at a consulting firm dealing with governments and million-dollar companies, but my question is relevant to something that you have solved, hopefully. And that comes from me working with software engineers and people who think like me. And that is, how in a smaller team, smallish team of a couple of developers and programmers and a project manager, how do you make developers buy UX and listen to the people without an external push from the top, like a director or a champion or someone, just buy it and believe in it?
So to some extent, there's an education factor. And so if they see it, if they experience it, it helps if you have executive championship, for sure. But you can get that. But recognize, so there's an interesting question that came up in the industry. When I first started work, the first courses that I taught, and the courses we teach today are actually date back some. Some of the materials are like, that's old. Well, go take us back to 1982. But it's still true, right? So we do update the courses quarterly. but some of it dates back to 1982. And what we were doing is we were training system developers, programmers, to do better CRT screen design. Right? And that's what we did. And then today, people have realized it's not the best practice. It makes sense to have professional UX people. Very few, I can count on one hand the number of people I know, who are great programmers and UX people. Because programming is a little bit like, okay, I'm the guy who figures out the tensile strength of the girders that hold up the hotel. And the UX is a little like, I like do the flower arrangements in the... So we're different kinds of beasts. We're both analytic, we're both creative, but we do have a little different DNA. So it turns out the best practice, and also partly it's a big complicated field. Right? So you think computer science is hard. Computer science is easy. Right? Computers are simple. Human beings are diverse and complex, and we don't really understand how they work completely. Hi. I'm sorry. Just hand.
My name's Natalie. My name's Natalie. I'm manager of UX Technologies as well. And just
do you guys talk together? Or?
We used to work closer together now.
Oh, now you don't talk anymore. Something bad happened.
No. In fact, it's amazing we're sitting next
because you never sit right together either. There's an open chair.
So my comment to add on to what you just said is that not only is it, I think, that you have different areas of specialization, where you're a programmer or UX or whatever, but I've read some really interesting viewpoints on also why it's really valuable to have those different areas of specialization stay separate to create a tension that actually enriches the end product. Plus, if you're trying to be a specialist of too many areas at once, you're going to end up being at this level as opposed to being a real expert in your field. So, what do you think of those two viewpoints?
So, yes, both things are true. So, UX is complicated enough that you need deep understanding. And the deeper it is, the better you do. And there is a creative tension, and more today, people are working together and it's going nicely. The other thing is, though, there are many fragments of how we have UX people. So there are UX people that specialize in different ways. And so that's a little more complex question, how you do that. But anyway, so yeah. So there are people that specialize in HFI. We have people that, like, they do cross-cultural design. And they know all about the fact that if you hold your hand up in any position and take a picture and make it an icon, it means up yours somewhere. Right, so.
Over here.
Hi. You got the microphone, so
microphone.
All right. You win. Okay, yeah.
My name is Tel van Gelder. I'm president of Akendi.
Okay.
And we're local. I basically started 15 years after you doing basically what you're doing. On smaller scale right now. But and my question is around I'm just listening to you, and it sounds very much some of the things that I'm talking to when we talk to our clients.
I hope so, because, so we know what we're doing in the field, right?
Yes. And
so if we're saying totally different things, like that'll suck. Go ahead, I can hear you.
No, sorry. I'm just thinking about, so will that meet my future? So 15 years from now, will I still stand in front of people and talk to them? And I'm thinking about the way you present it, and that's something that sort of wakes me up sometimes at night, is saying, well, how can you, given that what you said, of course, it's a profession, people know what you're doing, why would I need to argue my way through into an organization to say, I'm really no good, I know these things, I need to listen to me. How can I find a way to not do it one at a time? Because you're here, most likely you either do business or talking to people, and then it's one at a time you're convincing the next person to say, this is a good idea, and then hopefully we'll do a project, and you get to some point to governance and to institutionalization, and it's, which you know is rare. And
it's not rare.
Well,
so it was rare. It's not rare anymore.
No, it gets better, but at the same time I'm thinking, well, so 15 years from now, will it still do what you do today, or do you think it's going to change?
So what's going to happen in our industry? There are 3 phases in our industry. HFI has built everything we do is banking on this. So the industry is taking off. Cool. But the project work, doing UX projects, because internal groups are doing more and more of it, which is good, actually. So the age of the small consultancy, days are numbered. Because if you're doing, I have, 50 people. Well, I can't do serious industrial strength stuff with 50 people. I mean, we're 225 or something like that now. And we're just at the point where it's really starting to mesh, where we can do it on an industrial scale we can afford to. So being able to do it in a serious way. So the project work is going away. Right now, there's a big spike of institutionalization work. Companies going, we're setting up a group. Can you do some consulting on how we do our work structure? And then I get like 2 minutes. But anyway, and so that's like going gangbusters now, and I'm running around from place to place, and it will crash. Because everyone will have a group. And so that's coming, right? We're right about here now. So another 3 to 5 years, everyone will have a group. It's like quality or something. Yeah, we have a company without a quality group. We have a quality group, right? We're going to have a quality group. Which is part of why 50 people can't do serious mature UX. And then, what's after that? What's after that is support of the internal groups. And so HFI is building up the things that support internal groups. So what does an internal group need? Training, tools, advanced kinds of support, and staffing, staff augmentation. And we do that with local staff, and we have a huge operation in India. I spend half my time in India. I can speak pretty good Hindi. Little Tamil. So that's kind of where the industry's going. And so the good news is if you're good in the field, you'll have a job. It's a great field to be in. And there's a role for training people. Piecemeal consulting will go away because it can't compete with industrial stuff. Where I go in and I go, okay, we're designing this interface. Fine. I've looked at the people. I know what the scenarios are. Now I got to design the interface. Fine. Now I'm doing a wizard, and that's how we do wizards. And I'm going to, I don't have to talk. Oh, is it back and forward or forward back? Or it's previous next. It's all set. I go in. There's prototypes already made up, so I just have to. So you can't beat that. We have people just working ad hoc. Mature UX is easier. Object-oriented UX is easier. That's why we do it. Right? So that's where it's going. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Lalona, you can have to administer this.
We're going to have one last question.
Hi, my name is Jason Tellner, and I work for IBM US actually. I'm a UX researcher in the user-centered design group. And the question I have is following up on the point you were saying before about how with the institution...
IBM, how many people in IBM?
There's about 48 people in the group.
How many people are in IBM?
In the whole company?
Yeah.
Oh, there's several 100,000, I think.
So say 300,000.
Yeah.
300,000 and 48. Wait, is somebody good got a calculator? Okay, sorry, I was just writing your ass. Go ahead.
Okay. So, sort of following up on what Ted's statement was about, where the industry is going and with institutionalization of UX. As you're probably aware, the Canadian market or industry for UX is pretty different from that in the US, and also, Canadian business is also pretty different from the US in that it's predominantly made up of, small business and more consulting companies as opposed to big sort of corporations. So how do you see institutionalization affecting like small business in Canada for UX or consulting if that were to, grow in Canada? Or how do you see it growing in Canada and affecting small business?
So the serious institutionalization happens in big companies.
Right.
And so we've got a bunch of them in the room today. And those big companies are the ones that will lead that. Small companies, they don't do enough development to warrant that. So they end up buying tools or getting support from IBM or other companies that have the UX baked in to some extent. And it may be, like certain companies, like there's an ERP company in Germany, for example. I'm not going to say the name, they're in Waldorf. And they do, like, the worst stuff is like, oh my God, you look there at screens and it's like your eyes fall out and start bleeding from the nose and stuff. And it's just baked into their culture. Other companies like IBM, better, right? So you guys have some attention over the years and the UX team in there. So there's going to be a lot of competition among the IBMs of the world in terms of who can do the best job of reaching that second tier and doing it. The little consultancy that's going to come in and make a difference, not so much. They'll be there, but not so much. It's just so inefficient. So when I was a kid in New York, we had cobblers. Every neighborhood had a cobbler. Because what would happen is your boot would open right there, and then it would flap down, and they'd have to sew it up. When was the last time you saw a boot open up? It doesn't happen anymore. Because shoes are made in factories that have invested in the research to build the adhesive so it doesn't do it. And there are no more cobblers. So UX as craftsmanship was great fun. I enjoyed it. I did it for years. I'd walk into the room with a brown robe and tablets. And left justify that. Don't use 3 nouns in a row. It'll confuse people. Don't use all capital letters. Cost 14-20% reading speed. And I would just do that all day long. And it was great. Nobody measured whether I did anything good. And we couldn't really make it better necessarily in the way we do now. But that's the old times. We don't have cobblers. We're not going to have independent little UX shops. It's going to be done on industrial scale because that factory that turns out shoes really effectively, it just wipes out the cobblers.
So it's like the Walmart of UX.
Well, it's the Walmart of UX. It's the Neiman Marcus of UX.
Right.
It's the Harrods of UX. There's a huge amount of range, and so you can go to India and find UX teams where $107 a day, and you can get somebody who will call themselves UX, right? But they don't have training certification. But so you do have lots of different levels. But I'm putting up a shingle, and I've got 3 of us, and we're a UX team. I don't see that as a future. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I think on that note, we should let Eric stop. He had a long day today.
Yeah, I'm just going to blow my nose. And by the way, nobody shakes my hand because I have a cold. I have a cold.
Yes. And we're very grateful for you
Oh, it's
taking
fun
your
coming.
time.
I'm sorry I didn't get to give any talk. We didn't even get around to
We didn't
everybody.
get around the room to introduce people like we're going to do.
I feel bad about that. No, I don't know.
Next time you'll have to come back.
I'll have to come back.
Or something else.
Yep.
So again, invitation to everybody, please send ideas or come and meet and talk to us now. We'd love to know who you are and also have you come and share your experience with us. It's torchi.org. If you are Torchi, it's pronounced Chi, torchi.org. And it's a subset of the large organization, which is Chi. And they're actually going to have a conference this year in Toronto, which we're very excited about, in the end of April.
Party.
So, yes. So everybody is please invited to go to our website, check out our next event, check out the workshop in March, the Agile UX workshop. And
Fragile. Oh, sorry. Oh, by the way, I have 2 staff with me. April here she's Chief of Technical Staff for North America. And Alan is Head of Business Development for Canada. So, like, if you want us to do work, talk to him. If you want to talk about interesting stuff, April's there. And she can shake your hand, I can't. Unless you have, like, the Purell stuff.
well, thank you so much, Eric, for coming. And if you have any final wrap-up, or just final chatting, and then we have to vacate the space. So thank you very much.